Right. So the first thing you need to do is you need to open Windows Forms app, .NET Framework. So click Next. So you need to give a proper name for this one. So let's say this is for school. Let's say ACH so database or DB or something like this. Right? Click Create. So all the other options I will leave it as a default and click Create. Right. The first task is to create the database. So we need to go into Solution Explorer, right click for here, add new item. So we select data and we need to select service-based database. And we need to give a proper name for this one. So this is the ACHDB. So I need to give something like that one. So I can say ACH. Okay, I'll give it as ACH. So click add. So it will add it in the Solution Explorer. You can see the database, actual database file and the log file. Then if you want to do any modification for this one, you can double click over here and it will open. So we need to add a table before we do anything else. So we can right click over here, add a new table. So now we can add the table using SQL or using visually also we can do it. So let's say we want to have the student ID or something here. So first one is student ID. Student ID. Then the next, so I'll leave it as an int. So next one is their first name. So it has a first name. So this one I can select something like nchar50 or something. Then the last name, L name. This one also I'll select the same. But in real world situations, you need to have better, more suited values for these data types. So because here in March 50 means you can type only 50 characters, right? So then next one is telephone number. So telephone number also I select in chart 10. So you can see here the SQL statement also from here. So if you're happy with this one, you can update the database. Click on update. And if you want it, you can save the script file also. So let me click on a update. So I'll say update a database. So I think it's done. So sometimes you need to refresh. Yeah. You can see your table is already there now. Then I can go back into the forms design view. And then I can go into a view menu. Now I need to add something called as a, in the other window, there is something called as a data source. So I need to define what is the, earlier I created the table, I created a database. Now I need to define where this form should be connecting to. So I can click on to add new data source, and it's a database. And so when you get the data from the database, it needs to be stored somewhere in the memory in the computer. So this one we call it as a data set. So data set, it will get the data from the backend and it's stored in the data set temporarily in the computer's RAM. So the computer, the user can do things to the data. So this is a local copy of the data. It's what we call as a data set. Right? So click next. So it will already selected my correct one. So I can see the connection string. Right, click next. And I can save the connection string as a ACH connection string. But in a real world situation, in connection string, you have a lot of other things like the what is the service you are connecting. So you can see this is connected to local server. right? And attach into a local file, ACHMDF. Integrated security means whatever the Windows security we accept as a proper way of security, right? That means if somebody managed to log into the Windows system, so that's fine with this system. But in other situations, you need to save username and passwords in here to access the database. So click next, and then you can see all the tables, views, stored procedures, functions in the table. So I will select the table and click finish. But if I want to access more than this table, so as a when we are creating a table, we call the table name as a table, which is not very good name. But let's say if it's student, so you need to select only the student table only, because you're going to access only that one, right? Click finish. Then if you go into the Solution Explorer, you can see, like earlier you see the ACH MDF, now you see ACH dataset also, right? So this dataset is the local copy of your your database, right? So later we're going to learn how to manipulate these things. So to the time being, I'll close it. Then the easiest way to add the data into data into forms, we need to go into View menu, and then there's something called as a data source, and I can click over here. You can see my table. Now I can add the table in two ways. One way, I can add the table as a detail view, like I can have one item at in a text boxes, right? So this one I can select, like from here, detail view and the data grid view, right? So I'll first select the detail view and I can drag and drop over here. So you have something like this one, right? So you can later, you can position these things nicely. Like the first name, you prefer to have some more space in. Last name also, you need to have more space in here. The telephone also, you can have some, maybe this space is enough, right? So then maybe you can change the form's appearance also. Like if it's too large, I can make it slightly smaller. Right, something like this. So these are the navigation buttons and save and add new buttons. All these things are automatically created by Visual Studio without your typing anything. And you can see lots of here the data set objects, and there's something called as a binding source, table adapter manager, the binding navigator, like that. There are some new objects is already automatically created here. Now, there's another one more thing we need to do before we proceed with this one. We need to go to Solution Explorer. We need to select our database and look at the properties. And from the properties, we need to we need to select. So when we are debugging this application, this new copy of the database will be copied into a debug folder. So this is what we don't want to do. We want to copy the database if there's any modification of the database. Otherwise, we want to leave it as it is. So that's the another important step. Then I can run this one. Right. So let me click on add. So let's have first person. So let me have the second one. So like that, so when everything is finished, I can save it. So I can close it. So I can run it and see if the things, now I can run it again. So you can see all the data is already there. So I can navigate. So let me have third person. Right? So there's a delete button also there if I want to delete it, right? So without typing a single code, we can get things done. right? We didn't type a single code. අපි මේ code window එකට ගිහිල්ලා එක code එකක් type කරන්න බෑ. But if you go inside there's a code window, you can see there are lots of codes are there. Lots maybe, but there are some codes are there. Right? So, okay, give it a try.